Hello and welcome to a special edition of Sunspots. I'm Evan Cooke. Pleased to have joining me today the general manager of the Okanagan Sun, Jay Christensen. Jay, lots to talk about with this group this year, but wanted to talk about you and kind of your journey through football here in Kelowna, because you've kind of done it all. You've been a player with this team, you've been a coach with this team, you've taken on many roles over the years. But let's go back to being a player with this team back in the day. What was that experience like playing for the Sun as a young guy growing up here?
Well, at that time it was kind of, super exciting because it was brand new to the city, and my first year with the Okanagan Sun was only the second year the team had been in existence, and the founding fathers that started up the Okanagan Sun, Bob Harrison and Barry Ernest, and there was a whole group of guys. We've always been blessed to have a great board of directors, but back then when they went to the BC football conference at the time, they basically said there's no way we could compete with the rest of the teams down at the coast back in the 80s. And, obviously the founding fathers knew better and turned out to be prophetic, because, we've always been one of the more competitive teams, but there was a lot of hype around the team. The first year they came in and won a couple of games and probably, I think, the only maybe of 2 years where we didn't have a winning record and in the top two. So, they came in and overcame a lot of odds, put a team on the field. The next year brought in Brock Ainsley, who was our head coach at the time, had just finished his CFL career, and he instituted a little bit more of a pro-style system for practice and offense and defense. And that year in 1982, we ended up winning BC and kind of never looked back. The team's been competitive ever since. So really, put the processes in place to be successful, to make the Okanagan Sun definitely a destination team. Up until I'm terrible with dates, but let's say 8 or 10 years ago, we didn't have high school football in Kelowna. So it was either through the minor system or having to attract players from across Canada, really. And back then it was a lot of Kamloops players. They didn't have a junior football team, so we've always looked outside of Kelowna to kind of augment the players that are here. And it's because we've had that success. It started right in that second year. It's been pretty easy to attract players.
You pursued the game through a career in the CFL as well. Did having success at this level with this Sun program in those early days, how important was that in you deciding to pursue that CFL career?
Well, it was obviously the reason I was able to go to that next level. Growing up, I was actually a baseball player. My dad was a semi-pro baseball player, and he coached me, so I just wanted to play sports. I loved it. I loved competing. At about that time, baseball kind of petered out a little bit in Kelowna. They didn't have the Falcons or teams like that. So, I'd still say growing up I was a better baseball player than football player, but there was really nowhere to go at the time. So a buddy of mine was playing football. I switched over to minor football, and then, fortunately made the transition to the Sun. But really, because again, our systems at the time were very professional, and the organization itself was professional, and we've always had a goal and a focus of moving kids beyond junior football. We don't feel it should be the final resting place for a football player. We want them to get, whether it's university, CFL. We've had 4 or 5 guys get onto the NFL. That's kind of our focus, is to move people along, and it was back then. So fortunately, at the time, I didn't have, you always as a kid want to be either an astronaut or a professional athlete, and at that time it was more of a pipe dream. But fortunately, as I mentioned, the guys that were in place at the time with the football team had some connections in the CFL, and got me to a camp with the BC Lions initially that first year, and it kind of took off from there. So there's no doubt in my mind I wouldn't have had that career if it wasn't for the Sun and the whole organization behind it.
Thinking back on that career, I mean, you won a Grey Cup championship, you got to play with Doug Flutie. There's got to be so many memories associated with that time, but are there big things that stand out that you still kind of reminisce about today?
Yeah, I'm still in touch with a few of the guys that I played with. Obviously, as the years go by, that it happens less and less. But we still stay in touch. And like I say, I mean, definitely the Grey Cup was a fantastic moment. I mean, I was fortunate enough that I only went to one Grey Cup and got to win it. And it was also the game that we were pretty sure going into the fourth quarter that we were going to come out victorious. So I really got the ability, since it was my only one, to sit back and enjoy and look around at the crowd and just take it all in. So, definitely from a football perspective, that kind of stands out. But really, when you're talking to other people and telling, it's about the players that you played with. My teammates, some coaches. Equipment managers, trainers, guys like that you develop a relationship with are those are the fun stories and the things you really reminisce about. I mean, you don't talk too much about the big hit you took or the touchdown you scored, because those are just products of the game. It's just it's the camaraderie, which is why I've gotten involved, not only to give back to the Sun, but I mean, that's what you miss when you finish playing. I mean, I was fortunate, if you could call that. My last year in the CFL was with Ottawa, who at the time were terrible. So, when I made the transition away from football, I didn't miss the competitive part of it, because we hadn't been competitive the year before. But what I missed was, the guys and going to the clubhouse and stuff like that. And when I made the transition to originally the board and then coaching, you had that. So, it's certainly, again, the team gave back me the ability to make that transition and not, always wonder what if.
When you were a player, did you think about coaching as something that you wanted to do once you were done?
Not at the time I was playing, no. You're kind of living in the moment, and I was running a family business at the time back here in town. We were refinishing antiques and pianos and things like that, so that was kind of going to be the transition. But like I say, when all of a sudden you transition from playing, you need to fill that, what you miss somehow. So, originally got back involved in the board and was fortunate enough at the time that the coaches would include me. And even when I was playing, I'd come back and, come to spring camps and guest coach and do things like that. So definitely piqued my interest. So when I came back and now all of a sudden had the time, it seemed like a natural transition.
And what about now in your role as general manager? It seems like it gives you, during the season, a little bit, not as maybe as big of a time commitment day in, day out with the team and being involved that way. But in terms of putting the team on the field, that's obviously what you're in charge of. How's that job been like? What's the recruiting side of it like as well?
Well, ultimately, my job is to put the people in place to take care of all of that. You're right. The time commitment isn't as much, obviously, as coaching. I mean, Ben and his crew do put an incredible amount of time into to get the players ready to play. As a GM, you make sure that the head coach has the tools he needs when he goes out recruiting. You make sure that your equipment staff and training staff are top notch, and I mean, those are recruiting tools for us. The players go back home to to wherever they're from, all the way from Newfoundland to the island, and say, what, Hazel and Roy and Marina, the training staff, are phenomenal. Like, everything's we need is taken care of as far as injuries. From the equipment staff, Gary and Eric and their guys up there, like, even at the CFL level, there's no equipment staff like that not only take care of the players' equipment needs, but just from a support and somebody to talk to position as well. They do a fantastic job. So really my job is to make sure those guys have the tools they need to one, be successful on the field, but also make a difference in the lives of the players. Build their character and make sure that they're taken care of while they're here. And we've got Tamiko doing the billeting for the out of town players, and really it's they do such a great job. I'm there just in case anything breaks down and I need to step in and help out. That's it.
And with the Sun being a competitive team year in, year out, what's kind of the next step for this organization in terms of staying competitive each year, building this program? What does that look like going forward for the Sun?
Well, I think the biggest thing is, with Ben as our coach now, as an organization, we're extremely happy in the job that he's doing. I mean, obviously his record stands for itself, but just, the way he's mentoring the players and really carrying on in the long tradition of trying to get as many guys to the next level and continue on with their football careers. I think we average around one player a year that makes it to professional football, whether it's the CFL or the NFL that we already spoke of. So, definitely that's, what we want our players to do is develop as people, develop as football players and continue on their career. So with all those things comes with stability of an organization. And like I said, Ben stepped in now. He's finishing his second year as head coach, but really first full year, in charge of the recruiting and everything for the full season. So it's really just to continue to support him, help him with the things that he wants to do, and continue to keep the focus on the players.
Jay Christensen is the general manager of the Okanagan Sun. My name is Evan Cooke. Thanks so much for watching.